All right, so welcome everybody to another Friday edition of Industry Highlights with Lead the Way Learning Academy. I'm Ernest Levert, Quality Assurance Associate, AMP Coach with Lead the Way Learning Academy. We're a phenomenal organization. We've been around for a few years here in Columbus, Ohio. We focus on youth development and workforce preparation. We do a number of things from internships, education, coaching, you name it, we do it. All around our love for our young people and helping them be the best versions of themselves. I would like to give a quick shout out to everybody on my fellow AMP coaches on the call. If you want to do a quick unmute yourself, just say your name and a quick hello. We'll start with Coach Chris.
Coach Chris, work with students on the north side. I see my boy Amar is in the building. Appreciate you tapping in, man. It's going to be a good run today.
All right, swing it over to Coach Jess. Coach Jess, you are muted. Unmute yourself.
Well, Coach Jess for the 17,000th time, probably y'all heard my name at this point. What's up? I'm Coach South and East.
All right, let's see. We got Coach Amal on the call. Coach Amal, you want to unmute and say hello?
Amal, I'm on the east side.
All right, very good. And I think Coach Amir is in here as well. If Coach Amir wants to unmute and say hello as well. All right, that was a beautiful hello. And we also want to welcome all of our guests and our AMP students. Well, I wanted to add a prompt to liven up our check-in. We like to do a little check-in every day. So I want you to tell us your name, your pronouns if you like, as well as, since we're going to be talking about real estate and housing today, if let's say money was not an issue and we're going to cut the check for whatever you want, what is one feature that you would have in your dream house? It could be literally anything, but one feature that you would have in your dream house. I'll start us off. I would like to have a water slide I would have like a 4-story house with a water slide right next to my bed. So when I wake up, I come down a water slide. I'll pass the mic over to Lauren. Lauren, if you want to take yourself off of mute and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name's Lauren. My pronouns are her, she. And I think the last question was, what feature would I have in my dream house? Mm-hmm. The one feature I would have in my dream house is a movie theater. I love watching movies. And I just feel like on a big screen in my house would be way better.
Hey, that's what's up. Thank you, Lauren. All right. Let's swing it over to Carzell. Carzell, if you want to unmute yourself, tell us who you are and what your dream house feature would be.
Hello, my name is Carzell, and one of the features that I want to have in my house is also a movie theater.
All right. Hey, I've been to houses with movie theaters and they're popping, so I rock with that. I rock with that. All right, Amar, if you want to unmute yourself, tell us who you are, maybe what school you go to, and what you would have in your dream house.
All right, my name is Amar. I go to Columbus North International, and there's one feature I would like to have in my house. It would probably be a soccer field because I'm a big soccer player, as Coach Chris knows. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know, Amar be kicking it heavy, man. He's basically on the soccer field, so we would definitely have to make that happen. An indoor soccer field at his house.
Yeah.
On the roof is going to be the soccer field. We're going to be taking it, leveling up. All right, thank you, Amar. Let's see who else we got. Zay, if you want to tell us about yourself and what you'd have in your dream house.
My name's Zay, and in my dream house, I'll probably have like an indoor and outdoor basketball court.
Hey, that's what's up. I know with the ESPN not having all the sports on, they've been doing like these indoor horse tournaments and things like that. So we definitely can get the horse popping over at Zay's dream house. All right, and then I'll swing it over to Darius if you want to introduce yourself and tell us about your dream house.
I'm Darius. My pronouns are he, him, his. And my dream house, I would just want a lot of land, so a couple acres somewhere, some just space that I could have. Don't know what I want to do with it yet, but I want the space.
Yeah, I like that. He said, "Give me my 40 acres. Let's get it popping." I need all the land, all the land. All right, and then Donald Payne, I'm gonna swing it over to you, good sir. I think I got everybody. Donald Payne is gonna be our main man for the day, our feature to talk about real estate. Donald, what would you have in your dream house, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Thanks for having me today, fam. In my dream house, I would probably have what's called a car elevator. And so in it, it kind of spins or something like that. But based on which car I want to drive that day, probably like 30 of them or whatever, I would hit a button, almost like a vending machine. I think Carvana has this, like a car vending machine joint. I'd have like one of those in the house, and then boom, and then come down to the first floor. I hop in, or have a driver, drive me. You know what I'm saying? I have all kinds of crazy cars, and then also too, I want an amazing view. So in the back, like as you look out, I have like these doors, and I'll show you guys this sometime. But there's these like special like patio doors that like can totally go into a wall, and so I would have those doors, and it would have like a sunset, and maybe the back of the house would kind of go to like a or show like off a cliff or a mountain range or something cool like that. So yeah, I have something crazy like that. But yeah, appreciate y'all having me on, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, hey, that's some other stuff. I've never heard of a car vending machine. You just blew my mind right there. He said, "I want a vending machine for my cars." See, the rest of us are still working with candy. So that's what's up. That's what's up. All right, Donald. Well, I'm gonna have you unmute yourself, and we'll just kind of dive into the questions. We'll, like I said, we'll rock with about 30 minutes of questions and answers. Another thing is you got most of y'all should have access to the chat feature. So if you have any questions or any comments, we're real interactive around here. It's I'll be doing a lot of the talking and Donald, but this is everybody's show. So if you got a question, drop it in the chat. Donald has a lot of experience, as you will hear. So he's my real estate agent, my realtor. He bought and sold my last house. So I rock with him the long way, and so we definitely want to keep it real on this call.
For
All
sure.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So yeah, Donald. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about how your path led you into real estate. You have a very unique story. Just kind of start us off with an introduction.
All right, cool. So I want to tell you about how me and Ernest met. I was in college my first year, and Ernest was the president of this organization at Ohio State called Band of Brothers, which was through the health center, just a group of Black men that were trying to make it through college. And I went to Newark, so I went to the branch campus, and the multicultural lady, her name was Forley Taylor, she wanted us to start that same organization out in Newark. So she connected me with Ernest. We met up on campus, and I pretty much just, hopped on his coattails, and we started the organization out in Newark. So that's kind of how our friendship began. Now, back then in college, I ended up getting into network marketing, and I don't know, some of y'all may have been a part of network marketing yet, or you might in the future. But essentially, it just teaches you the basics of pretty much selling and starting relationships and being, getting to know people and getting outside your own box. Because I think for me, what was difficult about network marketing is talking to people that I know. Talking to people I don't know is not that big of a deal for me. Talking to people I know that already have that certain perception or thought or who they think you are, it's sometimes hard to break out of. So I did network marketing for a multitude of years throughout college and even after college. And my dad had been in real estate for a long time. My dad's been in real estate now 41 years, and I've been in real estate now 8 years. So it's been a while now. And growing up, he didn't really talk to me about getting in real estate. He just did it. My dad is kind of a workaholic. He works all the time. He loves it. That's what he loves to do. And so, I thought that I was going to go corporate, going to corporate America. My sister was in corporate America. I just kind of thought that was some form of success or something like that. So that's what I was chasing. And I did an internship with Honda when I was in college. And I was like, man, it's kind of boring. Like, it's cool. It's fun. I could probably work here, but I don't think I would really fully maximize my day, fully feel alive all the time. And so I told my dad, network marketing kind of helped me too. It kind of gave me a perspective of what it's like to work with people one-on-one and just kind of what it's like to have your own business. So I was like, I need to give this a shot. And there's also some spiritual aspects of what kind of helped me think about making this jump. But I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this full time. And I told my dad that. He said, okay, we'll see what happens. My dad's kind of mellow. So yeah, we'll see what happens. And Darius knows. He's like, okay, we'll see what happens. And so I got into real estate. This is late 2012, and at the same time I worked at night doing home health care for about 3.5 years. Kind of support myself as I learned how to build a business. And I was like 20 years old at that time, so I was pretty young. So I didn't have a network of people buying. I had to go out and find people and create opportunity. And the market was kind of a down market at that time too, so it was way different than it is now. But it was a unique time. I'm grateful for it. My first 5 years, I'll tell you, I mean, it was a journey. It was some ups and downs for sure. Even for the first 2.5 years, I wasn't sure I was going to do it full time. I kind of was like, man, this is rough. Like, I mean, because when it comes to dealing with people, you kind of you gotta be patient with them, but you also gotta do it on their timeline, on their schedule, this that, and the other, and things are always changing. So one thing you gotta learn in the people business is you gotta just kind of learn how to give and take, and more or less kind of go with the flow, but be a responsible person, be responsive, be available, but also to be a solution provider. And so I think I had to learn all that. And some people learn these skills outside of being in real estate. They might learn those skills in corporate. They might learn it in their previous experience or in having kids or having a family. Well, for me, this is pretty much my first career, or my only career. I've had other jobs, but this has been my career. So I had to learn certain lessons in this field. I call it, Darius heard this term. I call it taking my licks. I had to take my licks here. Some people will have to take their licks in corporate America or in another job or in other experiences, and that teaches them. So when they come into a new experience, they're already prepared. But that's how I kind of got into it. So Ernest, hope that answers your question, gives you guys an intro. Plenty more I can tell you about, but that should be a good start.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you for you touched on a lot. I had to start taking notes because there are so many things that I could kind of dive into and explore. But these kind of calls are really designed for our young people who are just getting into the world. So thinking about their perspective from the mind of a 16, 17, 18-year-old, and a couple things that you just said kind of stood out to me was you had to learn about people, right? And you mentioned that people learn about interacting with folks from all sorts of different spaces. So I wanted to first off maybe explain the word network marketing a little bit. I know that everyone has their own approach to and own views of that form of business. But just as someone who may never have heard of network marketing, can you explain it very briefly what that concept means and how that helped kind of build your ability to connect with other people? Especially when you talked about going into real estate and building your own market. I mean, that's a pretty significant feature of network marketing. Can you talk a little bit about what that looked like and what network marketing means?
Awesome. Thanks for asking that question. So many people have different perspectives and views on network marketing. And so to me, what network marketing meant, what it is, essentially is where you have a product or a service and you have to go and you sell that product and service, but you also encourage other people to be sales associates with you. And when they become sales associates with you, you're teaching them, but you also get like a override on some of their sales. And so you build an organization, and let's just be honest, the point of these situations is the bigger the organization you build, the more successful you're going to be. It doesn't always come. Some people are very successful in selling the product and in doing the product or service, but it really comes down to the size of the organization that you build. It's really the purpose. And so I think for me, when it comes to my network marketing career, I think I was in college. It was great, and after college, it was just all right. But what it came down to, what I learned, is the power of relationships. Because just because you meet somebody one time and they tell you no right now, it may not be no forever. It just might be no right now. And so, I think the power of relationships, the power of having, keeping a good reputation and treating people well, it definitely pays off over time.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really good point. That a no right now is not a no forever. Like that's a very solid seed. That's a gem that I think everyone needs to make sure they download. And then you said you talked about getting into the game at 20 years old. I mean, you obviously had seen your parents kind of build a business. For everyone who doesn't know, Vision Realty is a family-owned brokerage. I very much in support of their business. You may hear about a lot of other big houses, but I really love that they're local, family-owned, and family-oriented. You walk in there, you leave family. So that's a really cool shop. But Donald, so you've been exposed to it, but can you talk about how you know, a lot of people hear about real estate, and they, you know, the wealthiest people got into real estate, and that's where they made their money. And you know, real estate changed their life. But you got into it and you decided, I'm gonna give this a go at 20 years old. Can you talk a little bit more, expound on your licks and how your expectations kind of interacted with your reality, just so we can paint an accurate picture for folks, knowing that it's going to be difficult at first, but it's worth it on the end. But talking to us about the beginning of your journey.
Man, that's such a earn money. I appreciate that. That's such a serious, deep question. It even, you know, brings up emotions in me and bringing up that question because I think about the last 8 years, and I lived probably, even as a real estate agent, I lived paycheck to paycheck probably until April of 2017, right? Like where it took that long for me to get my life together. But some of that could have been avoided if I made better choices. And some of those choices that I didn't make well, even in starting my career as a salesperson, was I got a lot of car drama, right? Or whatever drama you may have in your life, right? You may have children. You may have child support. You may have tax situations. You may have debt. You may have whatever's going on. And sometimes it takes time to overcome student loans. It may take time to overcome some of those challenges to get in the right position. And for me, my thing was cars. I had a problem. You know, I even to this day, I've had 13, 14 cars in the last 6 years, 6, 7 years. I've had a lot of cars, car accidents, car tickets, speeding tickets. If you get pulled over, you get a ticket. I know how to get out of all those situations. So that I can tell you that's one of those licks where that another one I'll tell you about is my first year, 2 years, I didn't really listen to my dad. Even though he was a good mentor and he was there, I didn't really listen to him, right? I was too focused on these other people that in network marketing. I was still in network marketing at the time, where I thought they were super successful, or I was looking at all these other people and not looking at what I had already right here for somebody to teach me. And sometimes people will show you great success and not really be there. Other times people won't show you all this great success, but they'll tell you about things you can and should be doing. And that's the real success, is really in the advice. And so me and my dad actually had a conversation this morning about decisions and things that he may have should have done or whatever, but he didn't have the mentorship or the guidance or the training. And so what I'm going to tell you about is, in taking your list, is to go out there and do enough action, do enough work in one thing to therefore find that mentor, that teacher that is there because the student is ready. And so after about a year and a half, 2 years, I was ready. And that's when I started listening more, and I think that's when things got better. Another one I had to learn was in being patient with people, but also recognizing, and some of y'all are going to know this already just because of the way you grew up, you're going to be able to see when somebody's playing with you, or you just shouldn't spend much time with them, right? And for me, I was kind of a person that likes to give everybody a chance. Let me give you a chance, right? But comes a point where you invest so much time in a certain situation, you feel like you need to see it through versus cut it off. And so I'm gonna tell you that's another thing in this business, but in general, dealing with people, sometimes you need to just go ahead and say, look, this isn't where I need to be, so I need to move on or get out of that situation. And so I'm gonna tell you this, something Ernest talks about a lot lately is really in listening to your gut, listen to yourself, listen to your spirit. I think you need to definitely do that because it'll tell you a lot of things you shouldn't be doing. But I think I wasted a lot of time with the wrong people, just because I didn't yet know how to recognize, I didn't know how to listen to when somebody was speaking. Were they really trying to work with me? Were they really trying to buy or sell, or were they just kind of trying to figure some things out? They just needed a moment to be taught. So one thing I will tell you about in sales is the first thing you do is you listen, you ask questions, and you discover what is somebody looking for, and then therefore you help them get that. So give you an example. I had one of my clients and friends call me earlier, right? And I'm selling. He's an older gentleman. I'm selling some of his kids some homes right now, and he called me up and said, "Hey man, I got a couple of different things going on, and I want to buy a new build, and I don't know if I want to work with a realtor or not." And so I said, "Okay, that's fine." Said I bought money homes before. I said, "That's fine." I said, "Okay. So tell me why you think you wouldn't. Tell me why you think you would." And so what I did was, instead of me trying to sell him on why he should work with me, I took time to understand and hear what he thought, what he needed, and he began to tell me more about some bad experiences he had, or why he think he knew what he needed to complete it himself versus what additional advice or assistance we could provide. So sometimes it just comes down to listening, and so that's something else I had to definitely learn.
Gotcha. Yeah, I really appreciate you you highlighting the importance of patience, right? You know, Donald is we're good friends, and he's also my realtor at this point. But it took some time to even develop that relationship, and he was very patient with me, right? And so I think the one thing that's really important for people who are interested in sales, business, real estate, or anything is that most people are just going to wait for you to quit. Most people are going to wait for you to give up, and there's like a 1 or 2 year cushion or waiting period. And if you can make it through that first couple of years, then they'll be like, oh, they're really serious, they're really committed to this, and that's how you build those relationships and that trust and that credibility. So, you know, I wanted to, because I would imagine a lot of people try to get into real estate, right? If you say real estate's where all the money is, all the millionaires and billionaires, there's a lot of people going in there. And so I wanted to do two things before we pivot. I want to hear a little bit more about your story, and I'm gonna ask another question, but then I want to really jump into kind of the nuts and bolts of real estate in general, right? Like the value of home ownership, the value of credit, the value of investing, you know, residential versus commercial. So we're going to pivot to that for the second half. But I wanted you to hear a little bit more about what it takes to become a real estate agent, specifically. So you talked a little bit about mentorship, and I think that's really important for, you know, developing the skill set. And your hard-headed self, you know, wasn't listening to your daddy. We've all been there, done that. You know, our parents would be like, "Well, I've been telling you this your whole life," and you hear someone else say it, and now it makes sense. But tell us a little bit more about what it takes to really get into the real estate game. You know, establishing mentors, licensing, things like that.
Got you. Great question. So in order to be a real estate agent, you can do it as young as 18 years old. I'm not sure you can do it before that or not, without a maybe parent guardian signing off, but you can definitely do it at 18. And so what it takes is going to real estate school. There's two specific schools that I think about, I know about. Darius is attending one right now. It's Columbus State. You can go to Columbus State and get and you go to Ohio State too, but you can get the right amount of classes: real estate finance, appraisal, law, and practices and principles. Appreciate that, Darius. So you can get those 4 classes out the way, and then you can take a test and get a state license. Okay, or you can do it through Hondros College. Columbus State will give you dual credit, so it's going to give you college credit and give you credit towards taking the state test. Hondros is just going to give you credit towards taking the state test, and it'll go a little faster. You can do it quicker than the Columbus State route. But the benefit in the Columbus State route is that once you get an associate degree and you do a certain amount of transactions, you can get the next level of license called a broker's license. And that's where you can start your own brokerage. So that's how you can do that. So essentially, what it takes is doing the classes, and then passing the state exam, and then you're licensed. And you sign up with a broker, and then you're licensed, and you're licensed to sell. Now, here's one thing I'll tell you about. It's not very difficult to become a real estate agent, but the struggle is in maintaining and growing and developing your business and understanding how and finding those mentors and understanding how to run a business. That's the real challenge. Becoming a real estate agent, I mean, you talk to your aunt, your uncle, whoever else, they might have been an agent, or they may have taken the classes before. It's not very difficult to do that part. Now, let me give you some numbers real quick, some costs. To go to Hondros, usually about $1,500 to $2,000. Columbus State, I'm not exactly sure how much it would cost for those classes. Yeah, about the same. But again, you know, you're probably going to go a little longer and take a little more time and eventually finish your degree, finish your associate degree. So that's what it looks like to become a real estate agent.
Okay, so thank you. So you kind of spelled it out. You said Columbus State, you go to Ohio State, Hondros College. That number kind of threw me off. I didn't know it was only $2,000 to go to Hondros College and get your real estate license.
Yep.
That's very accessible. And then you mentioned something that I think we wanted to unpack as well. You mentioned you can go on and get other licensing and other certifications and opportunities. One thing we're our focus on in the AMP world, the Achieve More and Prosper program, that's what we're a part of through the county, is not only how we start, but how we continue and ultimately how we finish. So can you talk a little bit more about the pathways in real estate? Like you and I have talked specifically about residential, commercial, investing, whether you want to be an agent and just sell or a broker or whatever. Can you talk about the different pathways, different opportunities, how you start and where you can go from there?
Absolutely, Ernest, appreciate it. I love that question. I love to talk about this because we often are at the Columbus State or Hydros just recruiting for agents or promoting. And I love to talk to people about this. A lot of people want to get into commercial real estate. They believe that owning buildings will one day make them very rich or wealthy or whatever. And that is true. So is owning houses. But there's multiple paths within real estate. It's a pretty wide field. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of those fields. And you might need a notepad for some of these. Okay. So the first is being a real estate agent. Now, within a real estate agent, you can be a residential real estate agent where you sell houses. You can be a residential property manager where you rent houses and lease houses to people for a company. You can do commercial real estate, and you can be a commercial leasing agent. That's when you lease commercial space, and within commercial space, you're looking at industrial, where they have companies, chemicals, things of that nature. You got retail, which is like storefronts. You got office space, and then you've got other like businesses, like hotels, things of that nature. So that's quite wide space, and you might end up working for a big company, or you might end up working for a hotel chain doing acquisitions, or just some cool stuff within that as well. And then within commercial, you got sales, and then you got leasing, which is within that same boat. Also, too, within real estate, there's also a couple other jobs. There's being a loan officer, where you help people finance a home. That's a separate license. That's not a real estate agent license, separate license. You can be an appraiser where they dictate the value of a property. And there's within appraising, there's commercial and residential as well. And being an appraiser is probably the hardest thing to get into, the hardest thing to do. And let me also tell you guys about the opportunities that are available in all these spaces. When it comes to being a real estate agent, the average real estate agent, the profile across the country, is a 53-year-old white female. Okay, so that means the majority of realtors are at that age, or that's their profile. The average appraiser is a 57-year-old white male. So what you're seeing is that the average age of some of these jobs is way high. So there's going to be a transition over time of where there's going to need to be new blood in there. And so if you start out being a residential real estate agent, like myself, you're going to be exposed to a lot of different people, a lot of different opportunity. And then the thing that you're going to have to learn and figure out over time is how to focus and how to maintain your lane, and then you develop little things, little offshoots. The last thing I want to mention within real estate, though, is property ownership when it comes to investing. Everyone wants to invest, and I tell you, if you never become an agent, you should definitely invest. It's probably a very powerful thing, but you also want to do it wisely. You want to do it when you actually have some money set aside, because when it comes to owning property, there's always repairs. There's always things you need to take care of and do. But there's two ways to profit within real estate, and that's based on appreciation, value going up and you sell, or you renovate and sell, or there's the cash flow. The property's cash flowing, bringing in some type of monthly income. So, yeah, and there's also many ways to own real estate. Okay, there's a residential side, and there's the buy and sell. There's the buy, renovate, and sell. There's the buy and rent. There's also the commercial. There's the buy and lease, the buy and renovate and sell. There's the build and sell, and commercial as well. And within that, there's so many other little intricacies. I mean, the thing that I like about real estate is that, if you can think it, and you can create it, and then network it, it can happen, right? And I think I've seen that more or less over the last 3 years of my career than I've seen the first 5. And the reason why I think it was different now than it was the previous, 5 is because I was such in survival mode. I couldn't really see the opportunities that were there, right? And I tell Darius about this. Sometimes you need to just kind of get your bases covered, and then from there, see what else you can do or create. So, hope that answers the question, Ernest.
Gotcha. No, absolutely. And one thing I heard you say is that everybody should invest in real estate. And we're about halfway through our time, so I wanted to make sure that we pivot into a space where there are tangible outcomes and things that people can either think about or specific things that people can do. Right. So you mentioned the two ways to make money. I would like to pivot more not only into the business side of real estate, but also the personal side of real estate. Right. Let's talk about a little bit about home ownership, what that means, considering we have people coming from all sorts of different backgrounds. Right. There are people who have been renting their entire lives. There are people who come from households that have been owned their whole lives. I'm very grateful. I grew up in a home, and my family's been in that home for 30 years. Right. But some people move constantly. Like, we want to talk about what it looks like to get started. And I wanted to call out real quick before we move into that. You talked about appreciation and cash flow. There's a lot of terms being thrown around that for someone who's brand new may not really understand. And so I wanted to just apply a couple of numbers to this.
Gotcha.
Because I'm even learning about it, right? So if I buy a house or if I get a loan for a house for $100,000 and the value or the perceived value rises and I can sell that house that I paid 100,000 for, or I got a loan for 100,000 and I can sell it for 150,000. The same house, but just the value of it, the way people saw it has changed. And now I've made $50,000 on the transaction.
Yeah.
Like I want to just make sure that number was real and how people make money, because Columbus is going crazy right now. Right. I bought my first house when I was 24 years old. I sold it 4 years later and it doubled in value. I won't throw the number out, but it doubled in value. And so when I sold the house, I was able to pay off a lot of debt. So I wanted to just make sure that that number was real, that you can start very small with the purchase of a home. So let's talk about home ownership and the value on the personal side. Donald, if you can talk about, what someone should think about if they're getting into buying a house. What are some things they need to start doing right now? I mean, they're 16, 17 years old. By 18, you could buy your own house without anyone's permission. So what are some things that we can start doing at any point to get in the position to own home?
Okay, great. Thank you. So I want to answer a couple quick questions, and then I want to get into what Ernest is asking. So Jessica asked, are real estate agents required to take continuous education courses after getting licensed? Yes, they are. Every 3 years, you have to take 30 hours of continuing education. And then, I personally go to conferences around the country to learn more about either investing in real estate or how to be an even better real estate agent, or what's the cutting technology or what's going on. So that would be very helpful self-education to help yourself improve. And then Lauren asked, what was some advice you get to someone who's looking to become a homeowner? And Ernest says, why is homeownership important? So that's exactly what we're about to get into next. So let's hit a couple numbers. So nationwide right now, since we're majority of someone's call are African American, let's just talk about that. African American homeownership right now is around 39% across the country. I think the highest it ever was in the 1950s or 60s. I think it hit like 48, 49% at that time.
Wait. Does that mean that 39% of Black people own homes, or that 39% of homes that are owned by Black people?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a great question. From my perspective, that's a very detailed one. I don't know.
I'll probably say the first one. But
I think 39% of Black people own a home.
Yeah, we don't own 40% of the real estate, yo.
No.
That's not the situation.
Yeah, I wouldn't think. Yeah, that's a good one. That was a nice little play, bro. That was good. So let's talk about that, okay? Let's talk about why you should own a home, and then I'll talk about how. Okay. So the reason why is that when let's say you own a house, and Ernest talked about it, right? You buy a house for $100,000. I know that sounds like a crazy number. Let me break that down. Right now, that monthly payment on $100,000, $750 a month on a 30-year note. Okay, so I want to explain that real quick. That's $750 a month, and if you're renting that house right now, it might be $1,100 in rent. So a lot of times, homeownership can be cheaper than renting, but that only depends on interest rates. And right now, interest rates are at historic lows. Okay, so I want to bring those two things up, which are important. Now, you ask why own a home? Well, you're going to pay for a home whether if you rent or you own. So you're going to pay regardless. Okay, that's number one. Number two is that when you buy a house, over time, you're steadily paying down what you owe. So that gap between what you owe and what it's worth, that's called equity. Okay, so there's two terms: equity and appreciation. All right. So what you owe on it and what it's worth, that gap is called equity. Now, over time, it may appreciate. That means the increase in value. It may appreciate. Okay. Now, that gap is called equity. So that whole gap is called equity. Now, what you can do with that equity is you can borrow against it, pay for your kids' college. You can sell the house, pay off debt, pay for college. You can do whatever you want. You can pass on the home to your kids. You can give them the house, or you can, if you pass away, you can in your will or in a trust, you can give the house to your kids. It's a way of passing on money without it actually being cash, right? And so that those are ways in which the reason why homeownership is important. Because at the end of the day, the one thing that we can't make more in this world is land. Okay, now they have created a few islands, but in general, you can't really make land, right? So that's an important piece of homeownership. Also, too, let's be honest, there's some neighborhoods here in Columbus, and I grew up in Columbus, that were pretty rough growing up, right? I can name certain streets and this and the other where it was going down. And now those same streets, you buy that house 6, 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago for about 10, 20 grand. Right now, those same streets are going for 200,000. And so values can fluctuate in neighborhoods over time. But if you're able to own and maintain that property, it can be pretty valuable to you and to your family throughout time history. Let's talk about how you own a house, how you get a house, okay? And Ernest, you want me to show a visual, or do you want to just you just want to mainly just me to talk about it?
I'll let you go. Just get started with talking about it. And then
Okay, we'll do visual later. Okay. All right. So how do you buy a house? There's 5 main steps to becoming a homeowner. The first step is called getting pre-approved for a home loan. Okay, and that's where the loan officer is going to get into your credit and into your income. And you're going to want to show that you had 2 years tax returns and that you are making decent income, right? And decent doesn't have to be a lot. What really matters is the difference you're paying between your monthly debts and how much money you make. That's really what they care about. And they also want to see a decent credit score. You say, what's decent? 600, 640, and you may look at your Credit Karma right now and say, all right, where am I at? But the biggest thing that helps your credit is on-time payments and paying down any of those credit cards that you may have, any of those debts below 50%, below 30%. So paying those things down a little bit. Those two items right there will boost your credit score. Okay, so that's step one, right? Is pre-approval, which they're gonna look at your credit and your income. I hope I'm not getting too granular on for you guys. The second step, we're gonna do a home buyer overview and get into all the details of how you buy a house. Third step, we're gonna go look at homes and find the right house. Fourth step, we're gonna go through financing and inspections, making sure you're not buying a limit, making sure the house is the right fit, making sure that financing is, they're happy with all your documents you've provided. And then fifth step, you close and you move in. So the whole process, from when you find the house to when you close on it, it's gonna take usually about 45 to 60 days. Now, the time it takes to get in the right credit position, that could take some time. And the time it takes to find the right house, that could take some time. But I want to let you know that despite your situation, you can do whatever it may be, you can do it, because I've seen some people that had some pretty rough financial circumstances, bankruptcies, credit, all kinds of places. But they took some time to work on their situation and getting the right help and the right assistance. And they were able to buy a house. So I've had many of people that were over the age of 60 buy their first house. And, the thing I think is important about that is that they at least can show their grandkids, do it sooner. Right. And a lot of times what's pushed people to make that move is their landlord said, hey, I'm getting out of the business. I need to sell the house. Either you've been living here so long, either you buy it from me or, you need to get out. And so different circumstances cause us to make moves. But what I'm telling you is you can handle the responsibility. And the biggest thing that causes people not to want to go through buying a house is sometimes responsibility. Like, can I really do this? Can I really handle this? And I want to tell you that you can.
So thank you for that. So I think that was phenomenal. For people who maybe haven't gone through the home buying process, the first time I did it, I had no idea what I was doing. I just said, I went through a course and I was fired up and I'm like, the next place I'm living is a house that I own. And I stayed in my friend's basement and I just saved up and got myself together. And then I got my house, and the market was different back then, but I wanted to just reiterate the steps of what to expect. And Donald, I'll offer that you left out one step to buying a house. You got to find a realtor.
Okay, yeah,
You got to develop a relationship with a real estate agent. And there are tons, right? But this is where the value of networking and knowing yourself. When I tell my friends who are looking to buy houses, you have to know what you want when you get into buying a home. And in order to know what you want, you gotta know what's out there. So I remember when I was a few years ago, I would just run through. Well, I'm not even gonna say that right now. Maybe drive through different neighborhoods. Considering the time, look at different houses online, get an exposure and find out what you'd like. This is a chance for you to dream, for you to think about what you want, because that will kind of help you determine what kind of real estate agent to get in a relationship with. And then they will walk you through the process. I'll tell you with Donald, the process is super simple when you're working with someone who knows what they're doing. But the main, and one thing I wanted to pivot to, Donald, is the pre-approval part, because that's the personal responsibility part.
I like that.
You talked about like the home buyer and orientation, everything else like that. That's easy with a good realtor. But the income part, the taxes, the credit, a key part about what we do in our program is make sure that our young people are getting prepared financial literacy. So I wanted to just go very quickly through those terms. Credit is your score about how people see your ability to handle loans and debt. If anyone has ever loaned someone some money, like, yo, let me hold $10 and they didn't pay you back, are you willing to give them some money again? Most of us is like, nah, see, Chris still owe me some money. I'm just kidding. That's credit. And so for our younger folks, you want to get in the habit, if you borrow money, pay it back. And really the best thing is to not borrow money that you don't currently already have the ability to pay, right? We've heard that in a session we had before Wellness Wednesday. A good rule of thumb is to not borrow more than what you have in your bank account right now. Right? That's a good habit to think through. So credit, taxes, file your taxes, pay your taxes, because people aren't going to be willing to give you a large home worth 100,000, $1 million, whatever, if you haven't paid your taxes. Now that's a whole other conversation about taxes. And then income, we're here to help them get jobs and get connected with opportunities. But ultimately, it's about making sure that you're doing what makes you happy and what allows you to live the life you want to live. So if there's anything else you want to add to that, Donald, for someone who wants to buy a home for the first time, I'm thinking about Lauren's question. And Lauren's like, man, I'm ready. Tell me where I need to sign. Tell me, I got the money. She probably got the money in the other seat, right? She got, what do I need to do? Can you talk to us a little bit, just really unpack that? What do I need to do to make sure I'm ready to go get that pre-approval letter?
Sure. So I wanna say that some of the youngest people I've sold a house to, one recently was a guy. He was 18 years old. He worked in like the Amazon warehouse out there in Atlanta, and Spanish guy, and his mother couldn't speak English, and he spoke kind of broken English, but he wanted to buy a house for his mom because his younger brothers and sisters needed to live in a certain school district, and so we were able to find that for him, and his payment was probably like $900 a month, and he was able to successfully do that at 18 years old. I mean, I'm very impressed by that guy. I think early in my career, the other lady, she was 21, and was able to help her buy a house. She, I think, worked at Discover at that time, and she was going to Ohio Dominican and going to college. And then I'm working with another guy right now. He's 19, and I think he is in construction, and trying to get things together for him. And sometimes people aren't aware of what to do and you say, what do I do starting out? And the first thing I would do is either talk with a loan officer, or you can talk with me and I can get you connected with a loan officer, or you can go to freeannualcreditreport.com and look at your credit and say, all right, is there anything on there that shows late payments? You know, or do I have very limited, very few lines of credit? And you may need to get some additional credit, like credit cards or prepaid credit cards, but keep those balances low. Don't let that stuff stack up on you. Don't treat it like a savings account like I did. Okay, so try to keep those things low. Another thing I would tell you is try not to buy a car or a big car payment without buying a house. Your car payment sometimes blows up your what we call debt to income ratio. What that means is, again, the amount you're paying monthly debt payments versus the amount of money you make. So it's actually not about making a lot of money. It's actually about that ratio that actually matters. You can probably buy a house making as little as maybe 12, 15, probably about 1,500 a month, maybe plus or minus. And that might get you qualified for, you know, 60, 70,000 on a house. Or you can make, you know, 10 plus grand a month and you can buy a really big house. You know, it's just up to you. So that's how it works. Ernest, did I answer your question?
No, absolutely. I had to do some quick math. You said 1,500 a month. If you're working 40 hours a week, that's means you can own a home if you make like $10 an hour, right? $10 an hour is about 20,000 a year. If I love what Donald said about your debt to income ratio, not only about how much are you paying on debt every month. Some debt you can't control, right? Sometimes if there's a health issue or whatever, it may show up in the form of medical bills. But what he's saying, I think this is vital for our young folks. I know I look at these music videos, I look at the media, I look at the TV, and they got some nice cars. Most of them, those are not their cars. Don't believe them. Because what I've seen a lot of my friends when I was coming out of school, they go get these car payments and they're paying $400, $500, $600 a month for their cars. And what that does is it keeps you from saving money. And that's one of the things I was going to say, I was going to acknowledge is the importance of saving money down to the down payment, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about down payment real quick.
Yeah, talk about that.
So there are down payment assistance programs. And so they were able to get a grant or it's kind of like a loan that says if you stay in the house 7 years, it's forgiven. So there's grants available, and then there's a down payment assistance loan. Now, the loan you don't make any payments on. If you stay in the house 7 years, they forgive the loan. Okay, there's two different ways to get down payment assistance. Now, but you can buy a house with those programs with as little as $1,000 to $1,500 out of pocket. So, I mean, they've made it pretty affordable to be able to buy a house. Now, worst case scenario, you got to put 3.5% to 5% down. Now, again, on $100,000, that's $3,500 to $5,000. Okay, but I've already told you that you can buy a house as little as $60,000. But you know, you probably want to be a little bit higher because you may want this, you may want that. You know, and also keep in mind that people move generally every 5 to 10 years. So when you buy your first house, you don't have to see it as your last house. You know, Ernest is on his second house. You know, it doesn't have to be your last house. It's just this is good for now. Then you sell it, trade up to the next one. You know, there's levels to the game. There's levels to this.
Yeah, or trade down. My second house was smaller than my first house.
That's true.
I didn't want to put all that furniture in there. No, and again, I wanted this to be a great conversation for planting seeds, right? One of the cool parts about being a young person in 2020 is we have access to so much technology. And what I always tell people with Google is the question is more important than the answer. You can get every question answered if you know what to ask. And so we wanted to expose everyone to these terms. So down payment is basically means you have to pay a small amount of money in order to get the house. You don't have, if the house is worth $100,000, you don't have to pay $100,000 in cash, but you got to come with some cash. So maybe you come with $1,000. So one of the best things that you can do right now is learn how to save money, right? As one of the recommendations I have is to save 20% or You know, if you're really, if you don't have your own bills, save 50%. But once you start getting your own bills, save 20% of what you make. $1 out of every 5 should not be spent. That puts you in a really good position to start putting down payment in. And I got to make a plug real quick for earnest money. Earnest money is a real estate term. My name is Ernest, for those who don't know. Earnest money lets people know that you're serious about buying this house. So when you say when you put in an offer to buy it, you have to offer earnest money. And that's like you putting up $500 or $1,000. It says, I'm serious. I'm putting my money into this. I'm going to follow through if we can make this happen. So one thing I want our young folks to really take away from this is if you can get in the habit of saving money right now, that's really going to put you in a position to leverage and to negotiate and things like that. So yeah, saving money, Lauren, I want to make sure your question was answered solidly. Saving money and the building of credit is if you get a credit card, whenever you do, pay it off, right?
Chris asked a question, are there internships available in real estate to gain experience? So I did want to do a quick plug that we are offering an internship at Vision Realty. Darius has went through that program as well. And so essentially he's now in a space where he's learning more and hopefully looking to get his license at the end of the summer. But how what that internship looks like is usually 20-25 hours a week. We start you out with training you on how to talk to people. So getting on the phones a little bit, touching base with people, seeing how they're doing, touching base with some of our clients and just getting in the habit. And then also too, touching base with people to see if they're interested in buying or selling a home. And then from there, taking you out in the field and showing you homes and showing you what sometimes even remodelers that we work with, what the home looks like prior to them putting it together and then putting it together and selling it. So that just is kind of a small intro to what that internship program looks like. Usually it's kind of on a 90-day probationary period, and then we look forward to seeing if we can, hire them on a little longer as well. But it's really good for people that want to get into real estate and become a real estate agent and kind of get your feet wet and get started. And we'll be in touch with Ernest and Chris and more about that as well. And if you're interested, please apply and talk with them directly about it.
Oh yeah, that was the one thing I didn't. I wanted to ask earlier, or at least make plain, is how do you make money, or how much money does a real estate agent make? I believe in purpose over profit, but I think profit is important.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that 3%.
Great. Okay. So in general, on most transactions, real estate agents only get paid when the house closes. So people say, with that being said, you're only interested in selling me the first house. Well, no, I'm interested in you buying the house because you're the one that needs to live there. So my job is to make sure you're happy so you refer other people to me. So how I generally get paid is I get paid usually 3% of the sales price. So yes, you're right. The more expensive the house, the more money I would make. That's true. But sometimes you need to buy your first house. Then if you decide to upgrade on your second house, we'll make more money then, I guess. So it's more of a long-term horizon, long-term business relationship. And then, so that's how we get paid. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else to it.
I want to make sure, because one thing that we've had a book recommendation before of Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I love that book.
We've heard about the cash flow quadrant, the difference between commission and wages.
Sure.
And real estate agents get paid off commission, which means you only get paid when you sell the house.
That's true.
But to break the numbers down, let's say looking for houses right now that are move-in ready, it's relatively difficult to find one that's less than, let's say for easy math, $100,000.
It's true.
Right?
That is true.
And I'm not paying $100,000 in cash, but that's the worth of the house. If Donald sold me that house, he'd make $3,000 off that transaction.
It's true. So let me clarify that as well. So I wouldn't exactly make $3,000, right? So the company overall will make $3,000, and then you got to split with your company. Now, some companies will give you majority of the money, but no support or assistance, and then some companies will take up to half of that money to give you support and assistance. Go ahead, Jessica. Say something. Okay.
I was just saying, yikes! I didn't realize I was off of mute. When you said some of them take half, and I was like, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So So yeah, it just depends on the arrangement you have with the company. So on average, a first year agent will sell about 10 houses if they're full time. If you're part time, you might sell two, 3 houses. But full time, about 10 houses. So your first year, you're probably going to make anywhere between 15, 20 grand, probably up to about 40 grand. So that's kind of what it looks like. First
Yeah,
year, 2 years.
yeah, and I want to make sure that those are real numbers as people begin to think about their pathways, right? Is the curve, right? That in commission and sales, it looks real flat for a little bit, then it starts to uptick. Where your first 4 or 5 years, you're making 30, 40,000, you're paying the bills. But at some point, people are like, man, this person is serious. They're really good. And then the value of the houses starts going up. Now you're selling houses that are worth 200,000, 300,000, and for the
Yeah.
same amount of work, you make double, triple, quadruple the amount that you were making before. I just wanted people to get that.
That's all very true. And what I'll tell you is what is seasonality with my income, with other real estate income, is sometimes going to be the market as well. Because y'all may or may not remember, but 2008, 2009, the market drastically changed, and so some people's income disappeared. Some people were still able to be okay and ride it out. But as long as, like Ernest talked about, you can still save money in the high times, and you'll be okay in the low times. Because somebody still needs to sell, even during those down markets. They still need to sell their house, and somebody still needs to live somewhere. So overall, I think the true benefit to being successful in this business is maintaining and growing relationships with people. Because the more that they like you and you do a good job for them, they'll refer you to other people, and that's way easier than finding people that don't know you to trust you.
Mm-hmm. So I think that is phenomenal. I think we took quite a journey today. I feel like we covered a lot of ground. We talked about home ownership and what it takes to buy a home and what it takes to get yourself financial position to buy a home. We talked about the steps to buying a home. Talked a little bit about getting into the real estate game. What does it take to become a real estate agent? And then ultimately the different pathways you can take beyond that. Whether you're owning commercial properties, eventually we're going to be owning, people own airspace, people own water, we're going to be owning outer space. Like real estate is going to look crazy in the next 50 years. So this is definitely a good opportunity for people to learn about it and to invest. And to wrap up, I want to make sure I give an opportunity for anybody else if you want to drop a question. Lauren, Carzell, Lamar, all of our young folk, if you have any questions right now is a great time to ask if you want to unmute or if you want to drop it in the chat. Or AMP coaches, if you have anything else you want to add that you've thought about, now's the time to ask, and we'll wrap up. Any pressing questions? And remember that if you have thought about it, so has someone else on this call. So please feel free to add.
If no one has an immediate question, I do actually have a question.
There we go.
Is there room to make residual income within real estate? Because if you are selling in people, it's not a buying market. Like you said, you're not going to be making that commission type income. So is there a way that in someone buying that home, you're still making money off of it? Because it sounds similar to insurance or similar to selling cars, to where a lot of your front end money is kind of commission based, really based off of how you hustle and go out and get it. But if that slows down for whatever reason, is there room for residual?
Great question, Jessica. Great question. So there is a couple different ways. So of course, it's rental property. The other way is going to be through relationships, people consistently referring you different opportunities. Then a third way is that there's some companies, some brokerages that offer a residual model where you make, it's almost like network marketing, where you make money off other people's selling. So so that's going to be the fourth. And then the fourth way is owning your own company. You can make residual income off other people selling. So there is, but it's not, I don't think it's going to be exactly like life insurance or anything like that, where you sold it one time and then you continually get money off of it. I think it's just, as far as I know, those 4 ways that I just mentioned.
Thank you.
Very well.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'm learning right now is that anyone can really pick up a rental property too. It takes time. You start with your first step of owning your own house. And then the second step is providing someone else with a home who may not necessarily be interested at that time in purchasing their own. You see now how I've shifted my perspective.
That's facts, man. That's facts. It's good stuff.
Gotcha. And then Lauren asked a question more about the internship. So just so all of our young people know, we are going to be starting up our internships. More details will be coming to your email inboxes. So make sure you check your emails here within the next couple of weeks. So around June, the middle of June is when those internships will start. So make sure you check in with your AMP coach, follow up, respond to their text messages, respond to their phone calls, because we know sometimes y'all act brand new. And we'll get you all the information. But basically, you'll have 6 to 8 weeks to work with some of our companies, including a couple people will get the chance to interview with Donald's company. But we'll have plenty for everybody who's active and engaged in the program. You'll get paid $10 an hour to learn the game, to establish mentorship, and to go from there. So definitely get with your AMP coach. They'll have all the answers to your questions. And then just to wrap up, we like to close out with our speakers. First of all, thank you, Donald. Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Darius, all our coaches, and our students for being here. I had a great time. I love doing this. So the question that I have is, what is one thing, if we didn't hear anything else that you said today, what is one thing that you would like everyone to know? And then we'll ask for a book recommendation, and we'll ask for one immediate challenge that someone can do when they leave here. One immediate, we call it an invitation, an opportunity, an offer. So we'll start with the first question, Donald. What is one thing, if we didn't hear anything else that you said today, what is one thing we need to make sure we walk away knowing?
I'm going to tell you that work on your credit. Work on your credit. There's a lot of opportunities available to good, solid credit holders. So study that. That's going to be what I'm going to tell you. Study how to do that, how to do it well. Don't worry about the hacks. Just on how to do it right. Do it well.
That's awesome. Thank you. Second question is, what is one book recommendation? I'll offer that Darius put The Richest Man in Babylon in the chat. So that's already there. Are there any other books that you'd like to recommend? Because we're building up a library. We're sending our young people books. And so is there any book you'd like to recommend?
You already got Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
We've got that recommendation.
Got that. I'm gonna do a little quick spin and talk about something interesting, unique. A book I've been reading lately is the story of Dave Thomas, the owner of Wendy's. It's actually a pretty awesome book. And just to give you a quick background, Dave was adopted. He actually helped Colonel Sanders start KFC, and then he went into owning Wendy's. It's just a very inspiring story, and he tells you a lot of solid business principles as well as his life. So I definitely would advise checking that book out.
Okay, I had to look it up, but wasn't Wendy's started here?
It started in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, we got the first Wendy's in the world in Columbus, Ohio. So, has anyone been to Wendy's before?
Everybody.
All right, so the story of Dave Thomas, cool. And then the last question we have in parting is, what is one thing that people can do right now, like immediate, today, tangible, measurable? What is one invitation or challenge you have for everyone on the call?
Start reading and start saving money. I mean, that's something you can do immediately. And, start saving money.
Start saving money. All right, y'all heard it here first. No one has ever given us advice in life. Donald Payne Jr. says to save money, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you do it, and you'll be a homeowner sooner than you know it. So, Donald, we'll always love. This was fun, man. We got to do this more often.
I'm with it.
Hey, if everyone could give us some emojis, some clapping emojis, or you can clap on your screen to show our appreciation for our speaker and everyone here. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up, letting you know we will be doing industry highlights for the next couple of weeks. We'll have part 2 of real estate coming soon next week. I believe we have our special guest in very close. So Darius will be our special guest next week to do to check in part 2 of real estate, just to continue the story and make sure y'all really get this knowledge. Other than that, stay tuned. We hope everyone finishes strong with school. We know there's a lot going on, but we're here for you. We support you. And I hope everyone has a phenomenal weekend. All right. Be safe, be blessed, and be well.
Right. Thank you.
Nice meeting you.